Tim, thank you for joining us.
Rory, thanks for having me, mate. Good to be here.
Look, this is something we've been wanting to put in the making for a little while. Look, I love everything that you stands for, and there's so much more to read, but this is not about reading the stuff. We want to have a chat, have a conversation about, look, it's a fair bit that you've experienced, whether it's in the footy world over to, and then I love the things about the mental health, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit more, but also all the way through to finance and building a team in finance and having lending associations, which is a very successful, work there that you do. And how it ties into real estate and property and why all of this,
Yeah.
So if you just want to take us a little bit through the journey of from the footy world to now.
Yeah, okay. So I guess basically I studied throughout my whole career. So obviously having ethnic parents, playing sport was great, but also they were also very adamant that I had to keep studying. So I finished high school, went straight.
Put it on its own, it's not enough.
Exactly, yeah.
So, what are you studying?
And looking back, I was actually so grateful because,
it gives you something to fall back on, right?
Something to fall back on, but also it's very, you get comfortable as an athlete sometimes and you think retirement's so far away.
It's true.
Even though all the old players tell you, mate, it goes like that, you got to be ready. Lucky I kind of got myself into it because I could have easily gone down the path like most players and just not bothered.
Yeah.
But I started my sports business degree.
That's awesome.
So I did my business degree, finished that, and I was in a bit of a rhythm where I was used to studying outside of football. So I was able to do it again. So I finished my degree. I didn't know what to do next. And one of the guys at the time at the club, head of wellbeing, was Matt Francis, great guy. He saw that when a lot of the boys were doing their home loans, they were bringing in their paperwork. I was just helping out with the application because I'd done a few in the past. So I was just guiding them how to do it.
Yeah.
So he said, mate, you should study financial planning.
Wow.
So I said, great. So I'll do that. So that was my next thing. I did financial planning.
Nice.
Studied that. As soon as I finished, I met with a few financial planners in the area, Parramatta actually, and they all said, run for the hills. Don't do it.
Oh, they didn't want you to do it.
They said, stay away. It was during the Royal Commission and a lot of things had changed.
Yeah.
And they just said, it's not what it used to be. So they kind of talked me out of it. So I didn't really pursue financial planning, but I did finish my studies.
Yeah.
I then got my real estate license. So I studied real estate, licensed in real estate.
Nice.
And then I also did a TV presenting course at NIDA. So that was kind of like my education.
Did you sleep in between all of this, man?
Well, I wasn't sleeping, but not because of the studies, because of losing games and stress. So that was my studying career. And the last 3 years of my career, I had to deal with the club, but I was working a day a week with the club, learning about corporate partnerships.
Yeah.
And I studied sports business. I want to work in sports business for the rest of my life. So I thought, great. They're going to train me. I had a job lined up when I retired. I'm going to do this for the next 30 years. I love sport. I love business. Let's make it work.
And you tied it in. Wow.
So I started that when I retired. And 6 months in, I go to one of my clients. He's an entry-level sponsor.
Okay.
And he owned a finance firm. So I went to his office in Alexandria, which is boardroom. It was my first big pitch. So, I put together the presentation about you're an entry-level sponsor. There's a spot on the jersey, which is a major sponsor. It's a big jump, but, we think it's a good fit for you. Ended up signing the deal. So it was my first big deal.
Nice.
And then afterwards, he said, can I meet you with your Parramatta boss?
Wow.
So I went and met with him. We had a great time. We connected straight away. Like he felt like a family member, I felt like a friend of mine.
I love that. Yeah.
And he said, "Man, why don't you come and start something with me?" Because I've been around for 10 years at the time. I've got lots of clients. We're very good at lending. We're good at what we do, but I'm not good at taking care of our referrers because I'm busy. Sometimes someone will send me a lead. They'll see my inbox for 2 months before I get to it, or I'll forget to say thank you, or I'll send them a bottle of scotch or taking them for lunch, but there's no real process. So we built out like a formal process there.
Nice.
We built out a company called LA Partnerships, and he attached it to LA Lending Association.
Perfect.
And it's been fun to watch that grow.
Wow, that's amazing. Look, I find that in our industry, whether it's real estate or finance, it's all about the relationships.
Yeah.
So the better relationships you have with associates, your clients, one of the things that we're looking to do is a client appreciation dinner. Just putting together something. Talking about financial planning, I attended one of these ones, and I found that quite profound that you're giving back something to the client and really showing the appreciation. We take it for granted.
100%. And that's where, so our team's all about looking after our referral networks. That's what we do. But also the clients. So in our company, I think a lot of our success that we've had is because of that service.
Yeah.
So when we settle a deal for a client,
Yeah.
6 months after the deal settles, we'll call the bank without the client knowing and say, hey, now we're not,
Wow,
we're
you
not,
do
we're
that?
not happy with this rate. Get a
Wow.
better rate. We'll call the client who's not expecting the call and say, hey, we saved you this much.
Oh God.
This is,
I haven't
let's say
heard
it's
of that.
$8
Yeah, that's so
have a
good.
great day. They get happy. They tell their
Of
friends, stop these
course.
guys.
Oh, they're staying for life.
Yeah, so it's been a really good way to kind of,
Because I often try
clients.
to educate clients about that, and it's funny because my son overheard me once in the car and he said, "You just called the bank and asked for a discount. Like, how did you do that?"
Yeah.
I said, "Dad, you gotta ask the question."
Yeah.
And here you are, you guys are doing it on their behalf. Because look, going back to what you're saying, whether it's the footy players or anyone in general, they don't know what they don't know,
Yeah.
right? And if we are specialists in this field, whether it's footy or finance, you are the best at that. At the time. People are doing what they do, whether they're a dentist, whether they're a mechanic, so they're not really thinking much about the greatest asset that they have or the biggest debt that they have.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having someone on their behalf working the numbers, giving them the opportunities, saving them money, I think is where it's at.
Yeah, and we also have the flexibility of, well, one, because we're such a big company now, so we write about $3.5 billion.
Wow.
Because of that, we actually got really good relationships and with all the banks.
Yeah.
So in the start, I think now in Australia, over 70% of clients go through brokers rather than banks.
Yeah.
Because if you go to one bank, you're kind of limited by that policy.
Yeah.
If they say no, you
Yeah.
might get disheartened and think, I can't get this loan.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go to a broker, we can go, okay, listen, those 3 banks aren't going to want it, but those ones will. Let's go to those ones. So doing what we do actually makes life a lot easier for the actual client.
I've always mentioned to clients, especially if their finance is a little bit harder, you need someone to help you nurture through. But it starts a little bit earlier than that as well. So how do you budget to get into the property market? I find that we don't do enough in the educational system out there enough for our young listeners or viewers later on to sort of, how do you start from A to Z? Not everyone, with all respect, have a massive deal that, whether it's footy or whatever else to sort of bring in big income. But we've served investors on low income because this is where you start. Yeah. And it's not for the rich and famous. Property investing generally, or buying a property, whether it's your first home or your investment, is not for the rich and famous only. Everyone can do it. What they lack is the education.
It's funny you say that. So Jared and I have always talked about the school system, right? So in high school, you don't get taught how to do your taxes. You get taught how to apply for a home loan.
Yes.
Understanding depreciation. None of that. The stuff you actually need in life. You don't get taught in high school. You get taught about, algebra and you do algebra. But there's so many things like a Pythagoras theorem. I haven't used that in my life yet. Yeah. And so much things you learn that aren't really practical, helping you succeed in life.
So you also need to do it, but it's not the practical experience. So it's not about dissing what they're learning. It's about adding the life skills.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the finance, it's the property, it's shares. What does that all really mean?
And that's where it comes, having professionals. You talk about the people in your life that can actually help guide you. Those financial planners that can help you, budget and come up with a plan to get enough money for your first deposit. Then there's buyer's agents that can actually help you find a property and save you money and actually do the wrestling with real estate agents and get the deal done. And then our team, we like to provide the finance because people don't really think about that. They don't realize, okay, I found a house and then they try to do the finance. If you don't have your finance sorted, you put yourself under so much pressure you don't actually. So there's so many key people that you need to lean on to make sure that you get the deal done.
Look, and it's not easy, and it is changing. We just talked briefly yesterday about, the rental laws, for example. People don't know that unless their property manager's telling them this information. Yeah. And I guess this is part of what we're trying to do here, just to sort of educate a little bit more, and a little bit more about having the right team around you. And this is why we love working with you and your team at Lending Associations, because it's that relationship that I can bounce off and the clients can, sort of interact between a real estate guy, an accountant, and a financial planner. I often say that you've got to build a team around you of the right professionals to give you that unfair advantage. Similarly, with, I refer to my children again, and your children would be. Sorry, I don't know.
You're a teacher.
So you may already be doing this. Is that you'll be saying you should, and you'll teach them sort of by default. You don't mean to sit there and teach them a lesson, but they hear you on the phone or whatever, and they have a little bit more financial literacy than the next kid because we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they almost get an unfair advantage versus someone that doesn't know a lot about it.
Yeah, well, so my kid's only 8 and 6, so they're not.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, my daughter understands.
Do they do deals with
She understands. She's doing. I was about to say she's still understands finance. She's she'll do nothing and expect money for it, bro. So she's smart.
Yeah.
Or she'll save money and then we'll go to the shops for use my mate.
Yeah. I saved you this.
But you're right. So building that team, I just touched on it a bit earlier about having the right advice and the right people in your corner. It's no different in sport. It's really important not only to have a good team, but have a team that works well with each other.
Yeah.
People talk about a team of superstars or a superstar team. Like I don't really care about having guys that are, you see the buyers, they just had a flashy, they're rolling around in their Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And I don't really care about that. I just want a team that can work well with everyone in my circle
and can communicate well, be prompt. And I think it's a lot of and this goes back to our ground roots and maybe it's a bit of faith and it's a bit of culture, but being sincere in what you do. I think these are words that are forgotten when it comes to property and real estate and finance and generally, in the sense that are you giving a sincere service? Are you being transparent? These words are not being used anymore. It's like, oh, I did the biggest deal and watch me do that and I'll dance on a kitchen table. Dude, that's not what it's about, right?
Yeah, authenticity. Like everyone wants someone that's authentic, someone that you can feels genuine, and people can read that without. You can't really fake that.
I feel like in business, it's always the case.
Yeah, especially I feel Sydney because we've got a team like nationally, so it's every state's got its own culture.
Yeah,
Sydney is probably a bit more transactional than other cities. Yeah, like Melbourne's very much. It's just people just want to do deals and get done and like. Whereas Melbourne, they won't open the door for you until they trust you. There's a relationship there, so you got to work hard on that.
That's interesting.
Brisbane is very much a lot more colloquial, where they don't even care about the transaction. It's just more about
the relationship,
enjoying the process.
Wow,
so,
okay.
I like it. Sydney, there's a reason why Sydney's a bit of a beast though, because people just want to get deals done. And
look, I've said it before, even in real estate wise, Sydney is the Tokyo of Australia, right? So it's the high. Yeah. High level, high speed, everything's happening at once, and you really can't sort of stop and think,
Yeah.
With everything that you've done, I got to stop on that point because it's important to stop and think, and it's important to sort of re-strategize and build on that. How do you tackle that? Because I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm pretty goal driven. I'm pretty hungry for success. I think that might come from my sporting days, but I can't just sit still. I can't go back.
Can't get lazy.
Yeah, if we had a great year last year, I want to make sure next year's be there. And,
I love that.
So in terms of my part of the business, like the part I'm involved in, it's been growing. So it's only about 4.5, 5 years old, and every year success has just been, the team's grown, our success has grown, our numbers have grown.
And how does that pass on to everyone else within the team? Can they catch up? Do they catch up? Because you often find that the leadership team wants to conquer the world. Yeah. Sometimes the rest want to, sometimes they don't. How do you fix that culture? Because this is moving into a business coaching thing. But
for starters, I've got a great team. Like everyone in my team are genuinely, I'm really happy they're now. So they're really good people.
Nice.
But also, I work in a sales environment. So in terms of driving,
they're naturally born.
They get driven by results and
commission, money,
remuneration. So they do well. As long as they do their job well, they get paid really well. So it's not too hard to motivate them. But I am pretty lucky with the guys I have in my team.
Yeah.
Steve, one of the guys just outside.
Yeah.
He's a
I love Steve. This is how we met.
Exactly.
Exactly. So and it was the consistency. I must sort of stop on that a little bit because the consistency of him reaching out, sending emails. I get, I think, an email weekly updated about the clients that we have in the pipeline and where they're at, and it's a spreadsheet and it's precise. Yeah. Again, that's part of transparency. That's part of consistency. Yeah. And these are the things that we need a little bit more in relationships, in businesses with.
Yeah, well, you talked about consistency. I really believe consistency opens doors.
Yes.
For me, in my playing career, I was never the flashiest. I was never the most talented. I was hardworking, so like obviously that came from watching my dad growing up, but hardworking. And what I prided myself on was having a small gap between my best and worst game. So coaches knew that that's what they're going to expect from you. So you're never going to get from me a Jared Hayne 10 game, but you're never going to get from me like a 2 out of 10 game. So it's always, I always want to be around that 7 or 8 and just consistently just be
good. That wins the game, right?
But by doing that, people started like, I was able to be captain for so long because people trusted me to know what I was going to deliver. And then in life, if you can be consistent in what you do in life and, the person you are, the character you are, then bring that into the workforce. It does open a lot more doors for you.
And I think team sports generally create a bit of a character. Like my kids just play sort of, park soccer.
Yeah.
But I feel like it builds on their character. I mean, I'm never going to see a Messi out of them. I don't know, but that's not the point. The point is team sports, I think, builds something different in you.
I think, sport in general. So like sport, there's so many skills. Like if I was going to hire people, there's so many skill traits I look for that are all in that.
Really? Okay.
Actually, so teamwork, work ethic, stuff like under pressure, performing under pressure. There's so many things that you learn in sport that are life
in life schools. Okay.
The problem is there's and the elephant in the room with athletes is that transition space. It's, a lot of guys, it's nerve-wracking. Even for me, someone else
corporate world. It's offices. They're not used to that.
Since you're 14, you've done one thing. You're told where to be, what time to be there, what to wear. How big to be, how small to be, how fast to be.
Yeah.
Everything's done for you. So then you kind of get spat out the other end, and you got to figure life out. You're like, okay, now what?
It's true.
You don't have. Your manager sorting out your bills for you, and all the stuff all those life things you got to figure out for yourself.
I haven't done a lot of it myself. I've sort of touched on it through my career where I've met professional players, and it was a little bit in the footy world and a little bit in the soccer world. And I'm not talking huge names, but they were notable people that were making money. But and I don't know if you're happy talking about this, but are they saving for the future? Are they putting together a plan for succession for the next after the career stop? Because I feel like some have managers and they will help them do that really well. And some do and some don't, because you hear the horror stories and the good stories that come out of that,
Yeah. I think that's a space that can get a lot better. Like, I do think that's kind of your manager's responsibility.
Yeah.
And a lot of managers are really good at it. A lot of managers, will have the right people in their corner. So they will have financial planners and brokers, and they will support the player in a way that's really good. Even me, I saved for my first house because my pay went into a bank account I didn't have. My agent had the password for it.
Oh, wow.
And then I just agreed, I remember it was $407. That was my budget for the week. And I'd use that for the week. And then before I knew it, I didn't have to buy my first home.
Perfect.
So, there are guys out there that do it well. But also a lot of players, they come to their own worst enemy sometimes. So, they'll find ways to spend money. And then they think it's so easy to think it's going to be there forever.
Yeah.
And even when they come to retirement,
it's a short period.
Like if you're on $600,000-700,000 for your whole career, it's easier to think, okay, in retirement I'll make $200K. It's like, no, you won't. Like, what's your plan to get $200K?
It's not like that.
But they think, okay, I'm expecting to make less, but $200K is low. I'll get $200K. I'm like, they don't understand. There's a world out there where you got to like earn that. In a lot harder than he's paying.
Yeah, I hear you. Look, I just want to sort of, not every listener or viewer is going to be in that space. Yeah. So I want to sort of take it down to your average Joe Blow that's, working their 9 to 5, whether they're in a trade or an office space, and they want to start into the property. And there's a lot of feeling out there now with people saying, it's gone, it's not for me, I can't afford it, it's not going to happen. What do we tell them?
Well, there's definitely ways to get into the market, and getting in is probably the biggest start. So you don't have to go buy a $3 million house to start off with. It's finding your entry level, and that's where you talk to your planner, your accountant, your broker. If what can I afford? Once you know what you can afford, then go shopping in that number. And once you're in. So then you start building on some equity in a year's time, 2 years' time. That equity grows. You use that equity if you want to go again, or if you want, you can sell that off and buy something a bit better. So there's definitely a way in. So I think the easy thing to do is throw the whites out. It's too hard, but that's not the case. There's so many ways to get in. It doesn't have to be in Sydney. You can
investing.
You can buy stuff in other states at a cheap
rate. Yes, absolutely.
There's really good ways, and there's good people to help you kind of guide you on that journey. Yeah. But it's still relatively easy. Like, we're pretty lucky. We're the country where unlike America or the States where the stock market is what they do. They invest, anyone that has money, they're going to the stock market. Australia is property driven. So you're never going to have this big crash in the property because we're so trained to, you got money, buy property, you got money, buy property.
Yeah.
So there's a strong culture there where the property market is strong.
Yeah.
And it's always going to get stronger.
Specifically in Sydney.
Especially Sydney. Yeah. But, you look at Brisbane, summer fly. Like,
absolutely.
Melbourne's not as...
Oh, look, it's a second favourite for me.
Is it?
It's not a battle of the states here, but I just went there recently and it feels, the vibe is so like Sydney in a way, and the infrastructure is so good and whatnot. So if we had WA, love it or hate it, as a second favourite for a very long time. My older brother lives there, operates what we do here over there. And that's done quite well. We've seen 3 rises in sort of plateaus.
The only reason why I kind of cringe at Melbourne is just the land tax and the stuff that's going out.
Absolutely.
So they got themselves a bit of trouble with some debt.
They did.
And they made it really hard to own property there.
Yeah.
So you can still do it, but it's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
That said, though, you can get bargains. Like, it is cheaper there.
It is cheaper. Look, I know people are happy living there as well. And the funny thing is, it's not too different to here.
Yeah.
Like, we think we're in a bubble here, but it's really not too different.
Well, if you like this sport, mate, Melbourne's a sport. I argue it's a sport.
It's a sport of capital,
all the big events now, they go here, and then you get the NBA there next year. NFL's going there. Yeah. Obviously, you get the Australian Open, so they've done well.
But out of Sydney, I feel like, and I'm a huge advocate for Western Sydney.
Yeah.
Grew up in the area, grew up in Bankstown, worked in Parramatta, lived in Liverpool. I'm all the way in Camden now. So I'm all out this way. I feel like there's still good opportunities in Western Sydney. From an entry point, from a rental yield point of view. And I've spoken about it a little bit, but I'm glad to sort of be talking to someone that also believes in Western Sydney.
Yeah.
And all the things that are coming this way.
Oh, mate, I've been very big advocate of Western Sydney my whole life. So,
man.
Where'd you grow up in Bankstown?
Bankstown, Bankstown boys.
I grew up in Condor Park, so I grew up 5 minutes tall.
Yeah.
But I signed at Parramatta.
Small age gap already.
I signed with Parramatta when I was 14. Moved to the area when I was 20, or 21. Sorry. So I've been in Parramatta, Western Sydney, my whole life.
Yeah.
Still out here now.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity. Even like you look at the Parramatta City, it's
huge.
Every time you drive past, there's cranes going.
We've got the second airport coming in soon.
Second airport coming out of Western Sydney. Yeah. So Western Sydney, if you kind of had a crystal ball and look 10 years in the future, it's going to be a very different look and feel to what it is now.
I agree.
But even now, compared to 10 years ago, people that haven't been in Parramatta for 10 years that come here, and it's completely different.
Yeah.
And property prices have reflected that. So
yes. And rental yields.
Yeah. So I still think there's so much more growth in Western Sydney.
Yeah.
So whatever you're doing now to get into the market, you're only going to benefit from that down the track.
Absolutely. Look, I think again back to the point is there is a way of getting in the market. It starts with budgeting. It starts with not buying the castle that you really want now. Speak to the broker. The lending association will guide you through the way. And the point to it is don't give up, right? And it goes the same with anything. And I think you've learned that very well from sport. Don't give up, be consistent, have that savings strategy ongoing, lock it away if you can't control yourself, having a separate account, but just build on your own successes. Because if you don't do that, no one's about to do that for you, right?
I would talk some good advice when I was buying my first place, and
please,
it was rent was going to grow. Buy was going to grow, and rent where you want to live.
Hey, so I love that.
So easy to get emotional about the purchase. Yeah. So you're buying your first place, and you want it to look perfect, and you want it to be.
I'm going to do this to it.
Yeah. But take the emotion out of it when you're buying a place.
It's a vehicle. It's going to get me somewhere.
Don't even think you have to live in it. If you don't want to live in it, don't live in it. Yeah, you can get your first home grand, and you can get your couple of gains tax taken off you live in it. So if you can live in it.
Yeah.
But don't get so emotional about this being the castle.
The castle.
For me, live in the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Look at it as a stepping stone to where you're going to be.
Yeah.
I'll take the emotional way out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And then go to the next level. And I see, and there's so many different ways of investing in property, and everyone swears by their own way. And I'm sure barbecues around Australia are always arguing which is the best way. So there's positive cash flow properties, there's negative gearing, and there's things in between. Some will swear by apartments. Some will swear by house and land packages. I think we get lost in the detail.
Yeah.
In the sense that, and we say, oh, and then we label things. You know, apartments are crap everywhere. Well, they're not every, like, you know, land is what grows in value, but, you know, rental yields on apartments are better.
Yeah.
So I think having that sort of a managed portfolio, you know, a balanced portfolio, I should say, whereby you've got land, you know, not too much land, so you're not paying land tax, but at the same time having decent tax appreciation and all of that. There's a lot of intricacies to the deal that could make it or break it too.
100%, and that's where, you know, people. There's so much information out there, and we're contributing to it. We're going to be on social media, and people are going to see these snippets of what. Yeah, and there's there's so much information out there to consume. But if you're not in the market, it can be overwhelming. Like, you know, it's too hard for me. You know, this person's saying buy house and land. This one's saying buy it. This one's saying stay away from both and buy this. Yeah. So it is overwhelming, but that's why it's more important to get people in your corner that you can trust and guide you.
And that's what it comes back to, because when I'm asked these questions, I answer with one answer. Yeah. It depends. Yeah. It really depends. It depends on their personal situation, depends on, you know, what they're trying to achieve out of it. And I don't like going against the grain. You know, that's what they're set to do. Brisbane is where you want to invest. Man, I'll help you do that. You know, but it's just not one way fits all. Yeah, you know, and some people swear black and blue with their strategy. I feel like there's many different ways of doing this.
I agree with you, mate, and that's what, like, it's different for every single person. So, you know, a mum and dad buying their first home, a kid trying to get his first investment, a business person buying their seventh. Everyone's in different stages. So.
Or putting money in business versus putting property. All of that. Yeah. Just back on the team. And I find that one of the most important things, and me growing up in business for the last 20-something years doing real estate, I found that if I didn't have a lawyer that I can call upon and get some advice, a financier and financial planner, an accountant, the accountant key player in this as well, you know, learning about self-managed super funds and other things. If I didn't have that team, really I would be quarter of the man I am today, because really you pull so much strength out of the right people around you.
Yeah. Well, that's spot on, because the reality is, mate, it's a lot of stress to put yourself through when you don't need to. Like, so trying to do everything yourself is so hard. And you see in every industry, whenever someone tries to either be a control freak or be all things to all man. And I'm in the lending game, but you see a lot of accountants that try to do themselves, because, like, I understand to them it seems like a lot do that as well. Then a lot of them will start up their own brokerage and then stop it because they just don't have time for it. But yeah, if you can just kind of trust the people around you and, you know, not try to be everything and solve it all yourself, it's a lot easier. Yeah,
so it's not the I'll do it myself kind of.
Yeah, like, I'm all for people doing their own research and that, but they got to have people that they can trust to guide them.
Yeah, I just don't like saving money for the wrong reasons. So, for example, I'm going to self-manage my property. I say that as a property manager now. Yeah, but you're not, you know, up to scratch with the laws and the changes. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And dealing with the fiddly bits, because that turns into your full-time job. Yeah. So I'm like, give the bread to the baker and let them, you know, do their thing. Spot on. Yeah. So whether it's finance, whether it's property, whether it's property management, whatever the case is, I think if you trust in someone and you give them pretty much the bread to bake.
Well, it's the same, mate. Same in sport. Like, I never got my kicking license, because there's people in the team that's their position to do it, and you're good at it. So, you know, I had a role that, you know, they probably couldn't do, and they do a lot of things that I can't do.
State of Origin didn't do any better just then. Did they have ever kicked?
No, the diversions. Yeah, I know.
Diversions, right?
I know. But you saw Mitchell and clearly with their king game in the game management. That was really good. Yeah. My point is, I can't do that. So what they did, you know, I can't do, and it's really important for everyone to have their own skill set. And
absolutely. Look, one last thing. I think it was coming Monday. Yeah. I don't know if this is going to be aired in time, but we've got Dogs versus Eels.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, dogs, or well, I'm gonna stay on the fence right now, only because look, I'm torn in between. I work in Para. I grew up in Bankstown, so I'm torn between here.
I told you,
it's the one game I love watching live.
Yeah, and a lot of people do, mate. my whole family go for the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And even when I was playing,
Wow.
they asked me for tickets to the game, so when they played the Dogs.
Yeah.
And I'd give them tickets and they'd come to their Bulldogs jerseys,
Yeah,
cheer man to me. So yeah, still like, got a massive soft spot for the Dogs.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of them, man. I think it's going to be a cracking game. The Parramatta just started to get its rhythm. They
have. I saw the last game.
And Dogs have obviously started great, so it's going to make a really good game.
So, which side of the fence you're going to be standing on?
I'm going to go for the blue and gold. I still think they still have my heart. That team. I honestly reckon that the new coach is going to come things are going to go really well from this few years. So this year's a bit of a. If you look at the Dogs now and Serraldo years ago, I feel like that's where we are now.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can come up the other end of the Dogs are.
It's definitely going to be an interesting game.
Yeah.
Man, it's a pleasure sitting down with you, having this chat. I love the world before footy. I love the world through footy. I love the world that we spoke about with finance and property. And I'd love to sort of open the conversations a little bit more, maybe do Q&As, answer some of these questions, because we're going to bring it down to the consumer level, whereby what do you want to know?
Yeah.
How could we help you? And whether they use my services or your services, that's one thing. It may well happen or may not. Doesn't matter. The point is, what are we giving back as far as information of what we've learned over life, and how can we help others?
That's great. That's awesome.
Thank you, Tim.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.